Oh my gosh, it's so annoying. And then, or you go to send the recording and you're like, oh, look, this is 8 seconds. This is really helpful. So we're going to take care of that. Today, my dream, so Google Analytics is like a bear. And this is one of the first times that I've taught it like this. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with or like kind of read ahead, but my plan today is to talk about the basics, get people comfortable with the basic reports and some of the terms, and we'll talk about why it matters. And then next week, same time, same place, same bat channel, we are going to talk about like the reports that I use, because there's 800 different ways to pull the data from Google Analytics, and it can be really overwhelming, and it takes a long time to kind of figure out what matters and what doesn't matter. So next week, another free class is we're going to talk about, like, I have like 7 to 9 reports that I use for every client and I use for myself. So we're going to walk through those reports, how I kind of keep that data and how I measure it over time. So it's taken me a while, but I have this just kind of this routine and these Google Sheets that I use to keep myself on track. I also have really fancy, and they're not really fancy because it's analytics, but I have dashboards, custom dashboards that I have built that have templates that you can just log in and look at. And so you don't have to see anything in Google Analytics. And it gives you all of the information that I think is important in one beautiful dashboard. So we're going to go through that on the 3rd week. So the way I kind of have this set up is that we do 2 weeks of 1 hour quick free classes, and then the 3rd week, or the last week of the month, we're going to go a little bit deeper, build upon everything that we have learned, and really take the so what. Like, now that you understand where to find the data, now it's like, well, what does this mean for my business? How can I apply it to make a difference? Like, it doesn't really matter if you know all the data if you can't make choices for it. So in the last week, we're going to go a little bit deeper, talk what matters, how to use it, how to make a difference in your business, and we'll also build custom templates for everybody, and that's really fun and exciting. Okay, well, we are 4 minutes. We're 4 minutes into this. Hello, Colette. I'm happy to see your pretty face. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I hate to. I don't want to give you guys like motion sickness, but I'm going to be sharing a lot of screens. We're going to be going back and forth between Google Slides and then analytics. I also have created I've created just kind of a cheat sheet that goes over some of the terms, so you can kind of have it as you as you begin to work on your own analytics and you start looking around and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forget what that meant. I have it here. I'm going to put it in the chat. But I'll also absolutely include it in my follow-up email. My follow-up email that is going to include this video. So after this, I'm going to put the video up on YouTube, and I'll send you this handy dandy, not very pretty, but list of terms. All right, friends. Okay, so without much further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to start with some slides. And like I said, I hope you don't get motion sickness, because we're going to jump back and forth a lot. Also, oops, hold on, one more friend to let in. If any time along the way, feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, stop me, because I talk fast and I get going and I get really excited. So feel free to interrupt me. Also, feel free to put something in the chat. I'll look down at the chat, but if I miss it, stop me. I would love to stop and kind of dive in so that everybody feels really comfortable with what we're doing. My goal for the end of the class today is that you have confidence logging into analytics, understanding where things are, and you're not intimidated by what you're looking at. I also want you to feel confident in your numbers. I have a fun stats section at the end of the class today so that you can use it to kind of compare your numbers with other numbers, with like your numbers with kind of industry standards and things that we look for. So, alrighty, friends, without much further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to get started on, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to class. This is the fundamentals class about Google Analytics, and we're going to go over terms, basic reports, basic stats today. So you're going to feel really comfortable navigating analytics after that. I think I know most of you, but if you don't know me, welcome. I'm Meg, and I'm the founder and owner of Clapping Dog Media. I love SEO. I started my business years ago as a web designer, and I worked with creative small businesses to build them beautiful websites. I went to school to be a designer. I was always a designer. But what happened was, once I left agency life, where I was a member of a team, I was the creative on a larger team. Once I came home and was doing it as a freelancer, there was no other people on my team. There wasn't other marketers. And so I would create beautiful websites for clients, but that was it. It was like they got no traffic. They didn't grow their brand. They didn't grow their business. And I had thought that if you have a beautiful website, then then all of the people are going to come and find you. And I soon found out that that was not the case. And so after like my third or fourth client, I dug into analytics and SEO, and I really tried to understand brand and marketing and how just to build traffic. So I've been doing SEO since, and I love it. It is my passion to empower creative entrepreneurs with the power of Google. There are 6 billion Google searches a day. And that tells me that people are looking for you. They're looking for your business and the services that you offer. And if you can just be found for what you do, you're going to get a whole lot more traffic and raving fans, and you'll make a larger impact on both your business and your life, in your family, but also the greater good. You'll be able to perform better and to impact more people with your message. So that's me. I have a crazy dog. His name is Vader, and he's my biggest cheerleader. He's like my biggest fan, which is so weird, but I've named my business after my dog because I get really excited and I clap and I get happy, and my dog just gets up and wags his tail. So together we are Clapping Dog Media. Most people want to know that. So what we're going to cover, I talked a little bit about this earlier today. We're going to just talk about why analytics matters. I'm sure a lot of you are running a business and haven't spent a lot of time in your analytics. So I'm going to try to convince you that analytics is really important, and it will help you run a more strategic, better business. We're going to go over what all these silly terms mean, because there are so many silly terms. We're going to go over basic stats, or fundamental reporting and basic stats. And then we're going to talk about what metrics I think are worth tracking, because there's 1,800,000 and you don't need to track all of them. So that's what we're going to go over. Again, feel free to stop, ask questions, and chat along the way. So my fundamental, let's get started with Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a free tool by Google, and basically it tracks the traffic that comes to your website. It tracks from where the audience comes from and what they do when they get on your site. It's super powerful, and I love it because it tracks patterns. It tracks how people use your website. And if you understand how people use and interact with it, you can glean that information and then create more of that. You can create more raving fans, but once you understand how people are interacting with your website. So the first thing I want to go over are terms. If you have ever logged in to the Google Analytics dashboard, you get a little bit overwhelmed with terms like segments and page views and page sessions and new users, and they have this weird thing that says keywords are not provided, and it's really difficult to understand kind of what it all means. Now, I'm going to scroll up here to the top. I shared this document with you. And again, I'm going to send it along with the video after the class today for the recording. I try to put all of the terms that I could think of that you might need to know. Some of them I don't pay too much attention to. The things I care about really is page views and sessions. And that's basically, that's just a measurement of, are people coming to your site? Are they clicking around on lots of on multiple pages? I like the page views is a little bit different than visits or sessions that I have there. And the only difference is if somebody comes to your website, if a user comes to your website, that's called a session. When a new person comes to your, that's a session, and they can click around on lots of pages, and that's totally fine. That's still one session. Now, the difference between that and page views is page views are a calculation of every page that a user visits within one session. I kind of look at all of these, but really I want to make sure that sessions are going up. I want to make sure more people are coming to your website. I also like page views because I want to see how many pages they're clicking around on. When we get to the metrics that really matter, that's going to come into play a little bit more. So that's kind of about your users. Once we get into the behavior, which is really kind of the fun part, once we really start to understand where people are going and how they're interacting with your site, we get into these other terms, new versus returning. Again, it's kind of self-explanatory, but we want people to come back to us. We want for people to become a fan and return to the website, but we also want to attract new people. That's why we go for Google. Google has got all of the people. And so if we can get some people from Google, it will certainly help our business. The other things that I really want to, that I care about, that I look at is something called the landing page. And a landing page is essentially the page that a user gets to once they come from Google. So whether maybe they're Googling something, maybe they're Googling like how to publish a book, for example, how to self-publish a book. Google may or may not return your homepage as a result. Google may return a blog post or a services page where you help people to write a book. So the landing page is really important. I like to track the most popular landing pages. I like to understand what people are searching for and landing on. And oftentimes it's the homepage, but a lot of times it's not. So I like to kind of understand what people are looking for. Visitors flow, we're going to talk about this within analytics when we get to that section of analytics. Oops, excuse me. 1 second. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thanks, Kim. And let me let in one more person. Okay, there we go. Now, the other thing that I care about is we're going to talk about the flow of traffic, because it's really important to understand what people do when they get to your site. Like, do they get to your homepage, and where do they go? Like, this gets into a little bit of design and development, but it certainly is going to help as people flow through your site. The different types of traffic we're going to talk about once we get to the site, once we get to analytics. And yeah, the other thing that's really interesting is the difference between events and goals. I really like to set up goals for analytics, and we're going to talk about that at a later class on how to set up goals. But goals are really helpful because it helps it tells what's going well with your site. You can track how many people come to your contact page. You can track how many people follow kind of a sales cycle, a service cycle through your website. And we do all of that with goals. So that's that we're going to get into a little bit later, but just use this document as a reference for when you're kind of poking around on analytics. So I'm going to jump over now, and I'm going to open up analytics. I'm assuming that all of you have analytics on your site. If not, I have a step-by-step on how to set it up. I think it was included in one of the emails I sent to you, but if you don't have it, let me know, no problem. And we can set that, we can set up analytics for you. Now, I'm using kind of a demo site for analytics. So it looks like there's a whole bunch of traffic and a whole bunch of revenue as associated with this, but this is just a demo account that I have for analytics, just so you know. So when you get to analytics, you go to google.com/analytics and you log in with your Google account and you in here on this beautiful homepage. This is a dashboard, if you will, and it pulls out some really interesting information. Like one of the first things that I really love to look at is the active users right now. When we walk through the dashboard, this is the number of people that are on your site right now and the pages that they're on. So I always do this. I always come and kind of watch this this number after I maybe send out a newsletter or do a social media push. And I want to see, did people see it and are they coming to the website? It's really just a vanity thing, but it's nice to see how many users are actually on your site right now. There's always a last 7 days like snippet of how things are going. And this is just a measurement of your traffic. They do trends. We're going to talk more specifically about channels in a second, but this is like, where are the people coming from? Are they coming from Google? Are they coming from a referral? And again, we're going to talk about this more specifically. So this page is really just a dashboard of some really key information. I typically only pay attention to the real time, and I do some basic reports that we're going to go over in a minute. So when you get here, we're going to go through each one of these reports and kind of talk about how they're so similar, but then we're going to talk about the ones that I think are important. The one thing that I don't want you to do is to get overwhelmed, because when you start working through these reports, it can feel really overwhelming, and there's so many reports and there's so many terms, and please just bear with me. I want to show you what everything is, but I don't know who goes through every single report on a regular basis. There's just a few that I find to be really interesting and important and helps me make really strategic decisions for my business. Before we go over and talk about the reports, I want to take a quick pause and ask, anything that I talk too fast on, are you guys kind of with me? Feel free to comment your thumbs up, or if you have a question that you want to go over, please put it in the chat, and I want to make sure that we get it, because we want to make sure that this is almost fun. Analytics is almost fun. Okay, I'm going to keep my eye on the chat, but please
can I
feel
ask
free.
you something?
Yes, Kim.
So I understand some of this stuff. There's so much to look at. I get completely confused, but I noticed you showed the paid advertising to the right. And my question is, I always thought there was a difference between SEO and SEM. So are we just talking about the free stuff right now? Or are we talking about the paid, or both?
We're talking about free stuff. I am a search engine optimization chick. So I feel like you can do a whole bunch. You can get a whole bunch of traffic by just content marketing free. Now, because this is a demo site that I'm showing you for Google Analytics, they're pulling in demo data. They are showing money here as if it was paid. So the difference between paid and organic is free. And so this is just showing, because it's a demo site, that just for data, they have pretended that there is paid revenue here, that people have done paid advertising for Google. We're not going to spend time on it today because it's not something that that I do. It's not something that I even recommend to a lot of my clients.
Okay.
It's
Thank
a
you.
very specific niche of people who need to do paid Google ads.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay. So now my dream is we're just going to kind of walk through these reports. Now, we're going to start with real time. And the only thing that we're going to look at first on all of these is the overview today. It gives us a whole lot of information. So when I go to real time and overview, it's all here on the left-hand side. Again, this tells us how many people are on the site currently. And it also tells us what page they're on and where they are in the world. This is helpful. This is interesting information. It's always interesting to see where your audience is, but it's really interesting if you are a local business, if you have a brick and mortar store and you have a website, you want people to be on your site that are near you because you want people to actually come into your business. And so it's interesting to make sure that the people who are on your site are local to you, and that will just be a confirmation that your advertising and your local work is working. If you are based in Northern California and it looks like all of your traffic is on the East Coast and in Europe, then we need to relook at the strategy. But I like to look at this. I like to look at real time to see where people are, and I look at the top active pages if I have just sent out a newsletter, if I have done a social media push that sends people to a specific page. I want to see if it's working, right? I want to see if what I'm asking people to do, they actually do. So that's the only thing I ever use real time for. It's not something that I spend longer than 5 to 10 minutes in whenever I log into here. Now, the audience, again, on the left-hand side, we are just going to look at overview today because there's a whole lot of stuff here and you can get a lot of really good information from just the overview. So this is basically what the kind of the home page of the overview of every report looks like. There's a lot of similarities as you go through. And one of the first ones that I should mention that I haven't mentioned yet is this date guy up here in the upper right hand corner. If you click on it, you can totally change the date range from which you are pulling data from. It defaults to the last week. I typically like to look at chunks that are a little bit bigger. I measure traffic on a monthly basis for clients. And so I typically just do, I'll just go from a previous month and hit apply. And so this will give me a month's worth of data. However, when we are working on quarterly reports or year-end reports for clients, sometimes I'll broaden that date range and look at the whole year or the last 2 years or the last quarter to see if we can spot some specific trends. Month by month, when I track my data, I do it on a monthly basis. But that you can certainly open it up for however long you would like to. And interestingly, once you set the date up there once, as you go through the different reports on the left-hand side, that date will stay the same. So you don't have to set the date every time you go through. And you can also look at week, month, or even hour. You know, it's helpful to kind of get an overall trend line of how the traffic was flowing. Now, we're going to spend a little bit of time here. We're in the audience overview, and this kind of section right here is stuff that I really like and I want to talk about. These are some numbers that can be really interesting, and I tend to look at these consistently month over month. So one of the first things is users. And you can see over the last month, the users seem, this is the trend line for users. And by the way, you can change what segment they're looking at, but I typically just keep it at users. So the users pretty steady. They went up a little bit, but now they're down. So over time, I have a Google spreadsheet, and I just track the approximate number of users. For this, I would say 63,000 was the users for the last month. I like to make sure that that's increasing or staying steady if we're in a pandemic over time. Now, the other thing that I think is awesome is new users. These are new people who are finding us, not people who have been to our site and come back. I love the fact that this data is telling me that we're reaching new people. New people are Googling us, new people are finding us. So that's really great. Now, I'm going to jump straight to, I want to jump straight through to pages per session, average session duration, and bounce rate. These three things at the bottom. These are three metrics that I love, and I love them because Google loves them. Kind of side note, one of the things that I hear most often when I talk to people about SEO is Google changes all the time. They're constantly updating their algorithm. Why should you care about it? Once you learn it, it's going to change. Kind of things like that. You know, I'm sure some of you feel the same way, because Google does update their algorithm twice a day, they say, and they do 4 major updates every year. So it's kind of annoying. Once you feel like you got your handle on it, they do change things. However, the big but to that conversation is there are 200 factors that Google looks at to rank your website and to send traffic to you. However, there are a few things that have been very consistent and have remained the same over the last 5 to 10 years, at least as long as I've been paying attention. And those are these three things: pages per session, average session duration, and bounce rate. Now I go into this, I can talk about this for days, and I'm not going to today, but these three factors are within the top 5 ranking factors for Google. So I implore you to focus on these three things. And if you get these things right, it will all come together and your traffic and your brand will grow. It will grow over time. These three metrics, pages per session, average time on the site, and the bounce rate, are key markers to Google, because they tell Google if people like your site, if people are pulling value from your site, if they think that if you're just good. You know, remember, Google's #1 job is to match the best website for every search inquiry. And so when Google's scanning the internet and dealing with those 6 million Google searches a day, it's thinking really quickly and trying to pull the best website from its catalog of memory. And so if Google sees that people are spending time on your site, which is the average session, and they're clicking around and reading multiple pages on your site, which is this, and they're not leaving as soon as they get there, Google's going to assume that you have a good website and that they should send more people to you. So these are three things that I'm really passionate about. These are things that I want you to take advantage of and kind of hack for Google, if you will. And just for kicks, I'll tell you that the average session duration across the internet is 7 seconds. It's between 7 and 10 seconds. So if your website is above 10 seconds, you are literally sending positive signals to Google, because people are spending more than 10 seconds on your site. 10 seconds is an eternity in terms of internet time. So this average session duration was 3 minutes. This is crazy. They're getting a ton, even though this isn't a real website, this is just data. If your average session duration was 3 minutes, you're getting lots of positive signals. Google is indexing and cataloging you on a quicker basis, and they will reward you with more keywords to rank for, because people like your site and Google wants to send more people to you. Pages per session, Internet average is 1. It's like 1.01. So if people come to your site and they click on more than one page, you are again sending very positive signals to Google. So this really gets into design and development. If you make it easy for people to find additional pages, additional links, if you make it easy for users, they'll click on multiple pages. So this is SEO. This is also kind of a design element that we look for usability. And finally, bounce rate. Bounce rate is a term that means every time if a user searches for something on the search results page, if they go to your website, realize it's not what they were thinking or not what they wanted, and they leave, that's bounce rate. You send positive signals to Google if it's under 80%. 80% is the average bounce rate. So all of that I feel like is just a commentary on internet users in general, is that we are like squirrels. We don't spend a lot of time on sites and we bounce back and forth, that we're not focused and aware. So those are things that I love. The other interesting demographics that you get, the interesting things that you get on this audience overview page, you can click on language, country, where they are, operating system. But again, I really just focus on that. And each one of these, even though we're not going to go through them because it's overwhelming, is just kind of gets more specific about the demographics, about what operating system they were on. That may be interesting, and I may look at that once or twice just to make sure the design works for the most popular iOS. But in general, I don't pay attention to that. Okay, now this one is super fun. So get on your fun pants because this is awesome. This is acquisition. This is where we get people from. And I love this one. So we're gonna jump over here, and this is where I spend a lot of my time as somebody who is passionate about organic research, organic search. I want people to come organically. And this is, again, just kind of the main homepage. Again, you'll notice that the calendar stayed the same. This is really exciting. This shows you like the percentage of where your traffic is coming from. So here, because it's a demo, we have all kinds of traffic sources. Honestly, most of my clients have organic, direct, referral, and social. Display, affiliates, and paid are all paid searches, are all just paid searches. And then down here, we kind of break every one of those down. We break down every channel of them. And what's really also fantastic about this specific acquisition overview report, if you click on one, and we'll just go ahead and click on organic search. If you go and get a little bit closer to the organic search, you will see that the metrics that I love, because Google loves them, are displayed for each channel or each source of traffic. So we get bounce rate, pages per session, and average session duration, which all of this makes me really happy. Now, kind of a side note, I track this as well. When I get clients and they say, most of the time clients come to me and they say, I get a lot of referrals, I have a great business, friends of friends of friends refer people to me. Or people already know about me because I have a really strong newsletter list or email list, and then they just come to my website. So those are people where we want to grow the organic traffic. We want to spread their audience a little bit wider, and we want to get people from Google who are looking for them to come to their site. This is kind of the case that most people say is like, I have a strong network, but it needs to be bigger. So help me get more traffic from Google. And so one of the things that I consistently, that I like to do is, just jump back to the overview for acquisition, is I monitor these key metrics for their different types of traffic. So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but organic search is free search from search engines, free traffic from search engines, mainly Google, sometimes Firefox, but not really. Not Firefox. Yahoo was the one that I was mentioning, that I was thinking of. Direct traffic are people who know you already, and they're typing in your URL and they're going straight from their blank page to your website. Referrals, I talked about this a little bit. This is traffic that's coming from another website. So if you have guest blogged, or if you have blogged on somebody else's site, if you've been a guest on a podcast and your URL is there, if other people have mentioned you in their newsletter and they click from one website to your website, that's called a referral. I love referrals because referrals are like your friends who review you or who recommend you. So I really like referrals. And social. We all spend time on social, right? We all probably spend a lot of time promoting our business on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. And this is where we figure out where they're coming from. Is your social strategy working? Because are they sending people to your site? So that's social. Now, what I was saying about a little bit in the beginning, when clients come to me and they say, yo, I don't have a wide network. I have a wide network, but I need to get found by Google. I like to monitor the pages per session and the average session duration for these different channels. I want to make sure that the organic section is bigger than the other sections. Now, side note, just for kicks, and this is also, these stats are included in the terms Google Sheet. My goal for organic search is to be between 35 and 55% of your traffic. I want Google to be the majority of your traffic, 100%. Next is direct. And direct, typically I like to have between 15 and 30. And then referrals and social. Now I'm going to click on social here, but we're going to spend a few minutes talking specifically about social. Yes. I'm sorry. I just turned my chat on. Okay. We're going to talk. I have some questions that we're going to hit on. Okay. So I want to talk about social. Lots of times we spend so much more effort on our social media than we do on our actual website. That is not 100% true, but oftentimes it is. People spend a ton of time on Instagram and on Facebook, and does it even matter? So I really love to check this in the acquisition overview and in the social overview. And so you can see here that this example, the number one referral was YouTube, and then Facebook, and then Reddit. So I think that's really interesting. 100% of the time when I have clients who are like, I have an Instagram person who does my Instagram, how come my Instagram isn't showing up? I have two answers for that. Most of the time, people don't leave Instagram to come to your website. Instagram is made to keep people there and to keep you scrolling. So it's very difficult to get people off of Instagram and onto your website. Now, a lot of people who use Instagram have a tool or a link called something in their profile called Linktree. And so, because because Instagram wants people to stick on their website, they only let you put one URL in your profile. And so you have to kind of keep updating it if you want to send your followers to a website. There is services, there's a lot of them. The one I'm thinking of really quickly is called Linktree, and it's the ability to put more than one link in your Instagram profile. So sometimes, because Linktree is actually a website, that shows up as a referral. So if you are really active on social and you are spending a ton of effort and money and energy on Instagram, and it doesn't show up here within the social overview, check out referrals, because oftentimes that link is a referral. Now, average numbers, Abby asked average numbers for these. I think I mentioned them, Abby, but I'm just gonna go over again. I like organic to be the majority, 35 to 55. I like direct to be strong. I want people coming back to your site. So 25, 35%, and then social. It kind of depends on your business as which social, as the percentage of social. You know, there's clients who are like fashion influencers and just kind of influencers, and we want their social to be a lot bigger. But it just kind of depends. The things that I think are really important are organic and direct. That relationship between organic and direct is something that's that's really good to monitor, because if you're getting new people from Google, if your organic search is big, is the biggest piece of the pie, they will eventually become direct. And so we just kind of want to keep shuffling people from organic to direct, from organic to direct. So I want direct to continually grow, as I want organic to continually to grow, because they will feed upon each other. Okay, so Nick asked a really great question. What is a trigger for the bounce rate? Like, what is a difference for somebody who quickly leaves the site versus a bounce rate? Well, that's a really great question. Most of the time, if you have a high bounce rate, you also have a really low session duration. Google's term for this is called ping ponging. Is that you like, and we all do this, but you have like a tab open with your search results page. Maybe you're looking for, I don't know, the best grill to buy. And so there's like your search results page, but then you keep opening websites on the, like on a tab, like, you know, over on a tab. And if you click on it and you're like, oh, this isn't what I want, and then you leave, you have a low bounce rate and you have a low session duration. So they kind of go hand in hand. Now, which is a big stinker, because those are two of Google's top 5 things that they care about. So it's important to have a lower bounce rate and to include and to extend your session duration, especially with what we're talking about now. Sandra, that's a great question. I'm going to get you in just a second. Now, and what we're talking about now is kind of like big overviews of your site. There are specific times, like on sales pages or contact pages, especially if you're a product business and maybe you from the product page, you click on a product and it launches another page. There are pages, specific pages within your site where it's okay if it has a low session duration and a high bounce rate. If people like just jump off of that page, there are not tons of them. It's there, but in some cases it's okay, like your sales page or your contact page. If people fill out the form, hit submit, enroll, we got a contact. So that's good, right? So that's okay. But what we're talking about is kind of the site overall, kind of your big, most popular pages. And Sandra asked a really super question. Like, what happens if you leave your tab open for 3 days, which we're all guilty of, right? Google will time out after 30 minutes. So if there's no activity, if it looks like it's just, you just kind of left, it will stop it after 30 minutes. So I wish we could just all have computers open with all of our tabs open for all of our sites to kind of get the numbers going in the right direction, but that's not the case. I know, I always come back and read, I save things with my tabs. Okay, so I'm gonna close acquisition. I love acquisition because I love to see where my people are coming from. I love to see what's working for them. Now we're going to jump down to behavior, and this one has all kinds of fun information in it, and we're going to go through it quickly. Then we're going to talk about more about the things that I look at, and we're going to talk about my fun stats, because I have a lot of fun stats. Okay, so behavior overview. This tells us more information about what people are doing on your website. Um, Now, I'm going to go through a couple of these just because they're really cool. And if you have analytics, it's cool to kind of go see how things are working. Um, so the first one that this is just mind blowing how fun this is called behavior flow. And this is Google tracking how users go through your website. What pages do they leave? What pages do they start on? And then where do they go after, like if they click on one page, where do they go next? And so this is, again, just a demo, but you can see like the majority of people landed on the homepage. 36,000 people landed on the homepage versus some of these other pages, a store, a sign in, and then kind of other, where they might have Googled and ended up on, that might have been their starting page or their landing page. And then they go here. And so then they go here to this starting page, what they say is not set. So I'm sure if we click on it, we can highlight the traffic and figure out what that page was. But what's interesting when you throw here is you look and see where people go. So only 3% moved through, 81,000 people dropped off. And then you can go through and look at, the next pages. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I do recommend that you check it out on your site because it's really interesting. I know that you and your designer and your developer, or you, when you created your site, had an idea of how you wanted people to interact with your website. And this will tell you if it's working, if they're actually doing what you expected. Now, the next and the only other thing I'm going to talk about with behavior is this wonderful place called site content. And this basically is the pages on your, like the content, the pages on your site. So for example, these are the top 10 most popular pages on the site within the last month. I can certainly go down here to show rows and have more pages pop up. But this is something that I look at all the time because I want to know if the pages that we're marketing in social media, if the pages that new pages that we're blogging about are people looking at. Is my services pages being looked at? I want to know the most popular pages on your site. And it's great because it will tell you, how many people are on there. And this is so typical, friends, so typical that you probably have 5 to 10 pages that are getting 80% of your traffic. And then you'll see from it very quickly, it goes from 71,000 down to 8,000. So this is very typical. There's typically a handful of pages that are getting the biggest weight and the biggest amount of traffic. And it's really interesting to kind of go and see, are those pages that you care about? If they're not pages that you care about, then we talk about updating them or moving them around, or we come up with a plan for them. But this is a really interesting thing that I like to look at. And then exit pages. This is the last, I keep saying this is the last thing, but I swear this is the last thing. This is another really interesting thing to kind of note and to put into the back of your brain. These are the pages that people leave your site on. Like you can see here, a lot of people went to the homepage and then they exited. So that's kind of a bummer. These are the pages that people leave on. Now, there are pages on our site that we want people to, I'll get you 1 second, Nikki. There are pages that we want people to leave on. Typically our contact page. If you fill out my contact form and you hit send, you may leave because you have given me your email, you have given me a way to interact with you. But some of these pages, like kind of the sign in, I don't want people to leave. I want them to dig in a little bit deeper. So when you have pages within your exit menu that you don't want, then we talk about maybe restructuring them, putting different content on them, making them a little bit different, more attractive to users, so they don't leave on you. I hope that makes sense. Now, what I want you to feel right now is like, gosh, there's a whole bunch of stuff here in Google Analytics. But if you just go through the audience overview, the acquisition overview, and the behavior overview, you can get a whole lot of information about the people who come to your site, what they do on your site, and where they're coming from. And this is really helpful information as you start to build your strategy. So if you have a high bounce rate, Nikki, it just means that people were expecting something and then they left, they bounced. So they were expecting something to see on your site, they get to your site and they're like, and they leave. We want the bounce rate to be under 80. That sends really positive signals to Google, especially for your homepage. We can work on that, Nikki. Nikki's was pretty high. Nick asked, do I recommend to have more pages or less on a site, assuming each should be good for all pages? That's a really great question. Like, do we need, how many pages is good enough for your site? Well, this gets into a little bit of things that are outside of Google Analytics, but when Google crawls your site and they are thinking about you and they're trying to understand where to put you in their catalog of memory so that they can quickly retrieve you for a search query, they typically put pages that have been updated often, that have been updated often and recently, because they want to provide the best answer for the search inquiry. So Google is going to assume that a page that has been updated recently on a site that updates frequently, that content is newer and more up to date than a website that hasn't been updated in 6 months. So kind of following that logic, I like to have new content show up consistently on your site, but only if it provides value. I don't want just wasted content that doesn't really say anything. If you provide consistent, high value content, then that's really the best. And updates are a little bit different. Updates could be a new product, a new service, a new blog post, maybe updating old blog post. Just Google's going to be able, when Google crawls the site, it's going to understand what is new and what is different. So Pamela, she asked what qualifies as an update. Really just kind of a change. Like, I know you have a ton of content on your site, Pamela. If you update some of the older content, Google's going to see that as an update. Yes. Kim asked a really interesting question. Can I have one part of my website that updates frequently and the other parts that are kind of stagnant? 100%. Yes, that's typically what I do. I update my workshop schedule and my blog, but my services page, my content page, my home page doesn't often change. So yes, as long as you're putting, and it's all about value. Are you helping people? Are you getting people to stick around on your site? Are you getting people who like you and then kind of click around? And that all comes back to providing good value. I'm so glad. We can talk about that, Cam. Now, other things that I want to talk about, because this is really fun, is I'm going to jump back, and I'm not going to present this whole thing, but it's okay. I have some fun stats out here. I guess I can. Come back. Okay, this is really fun. These, I think, will help you as you look at your stats to and kind of compare them with the world. Now, also, side note, I know that we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to try to go through these quickly, and I will still stay for questions, and I never go away. So if you think of a question as you go through your content later today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Shoot me an email. Hit me up on Insta. I'm happy to help. And I'm not offended at all if you have to roll, because we're hitting on 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Totally not offended. Thank you for coming and enjoy your day. Now, fun stats time. Let's go back. The niche that's most dependent on Google is health related and medical. Most people Google that. And so health and medical related verticals or businesses get most of their traffic, 87% from Google. The niche that's least reliant is crypto. And I don't fully understand what that means, but I don't have any crypto clients. And that's because they're not dependent on search. Facebook, as much as some of us love and hate Facebook, Facebook is responsible for 65% of the social traffic. So when you look at your social segment, if you have a high Facebook value, you're going to be consistent with the rest of the world. It delivers more traffic to websites than all of the other social medias combined. And that is because it is easy to add links. It's easy to push people off of Facebook and onto your site, whereas it's not as easy for other ones, especially Instagram and also Pinterest. Pinterest is another one that kind of sucks you in and you get kind of distracted by scrolling and saving. Pinterest is a great business, is a great social media to use, but it doesn't really entice people to go to your website. So just FYI, if you're not involved in social media, I would recommend that you start with Facebook. And this has another thing, Instagram drives less than 1% of overall traffic. What? I spend so much time on Instagram, but should you? Like crazy. Even beauty brands and fashion brands, most of their traffic doesn't come from Instagram. Business and marketing gets a huge piece of Facebook. Look at number 7, people. Google drives 8 times more traffic than all social media. So you need to be investing in Google. Spend time on your site and SEO because it drives 8 times more traffic than any social media. Isn't that amazing? Search is the largest traffic in every major niche. Also, Reddit, this was like a shocker to me. Reddit drives more traffic than YouTube. I mean, I am addicted to Reddit, but I did not also YouTube. But I thought that was really interesting. So I love that. It's a pretty fancy little thing. Now here is, and this is also included in your sheet because it's fun to look at as to where major verticals are getting their traffic. Oops, I hate that. So there you go, like fashion and beauty, marketing, real estate, health, food. I love my foodies. Fitness, look at fitness. 48% of their traffic typically comes from search, 37% comes from direct. Isn't that crazy? That stuff blows my mind. It's really exciting. And it goes back to, we really need to focus most on search and direct because they feed each other. Okay, so again, you have that in that Google Sheet. I will email it to you. So that is, I know, Pinterest stat, shocking. So that kind of wraps up the overview. We went through some terms, kind of the basic reports, some exciting stats. If I am happy to have you all unmute yourself and we can chat about Google Analytics. Do you have any questions of anything that I missed? If you're still like, but come next Thursday, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to talk very specifically about 7 reports, maybe 5 if I feel like 7's overwhelming, reports that I do for all of my clients every month. And I'm going to show you how I track the traffic so that you have a better idea. Oh, I see some traffic. Hold on, I'm going to scroll down. Okay, yay, Kim. Kim says she uses Facebook a lot and we get a lot of the business from random referrals, but she doesn't spend a lot of time doing social media, only 3 to 4 hours a week. That's great news. Bye, Sophie. Thank you for coming. Yes, I do. Cecile asked, what do we like regularly track? Yes, and I'm planning on sharing that next week, but I can send that out to you also, Cecile. I just track traffic, overall total traffic, organic traffic, ranking keywords, and then I monitor the stats that matter, the bounce rate, pages per session, and the dwell time. Those are the things that really give me a good indication of the health of the website. And if over time something spikes or goes really low, I know that something technically might be wrong with the site. Those are kind of like the canary in the coal mine for me. So I track those over time to make sure that our strategy is working. Yes, thanks, Kim. All right. Any other questions? I'm so thankful that you all came. I hope to see your lovely faces next Thursday. I also hope that you don't have a headache from me talking so often, so loudly, and so quickly. But thank you. But please feel free to follow up with any questions. I never go away. You can find me at Meg at Clapping Dog Media or Clapping Dog Media on Instagram. And I know that people on my Instagram don't go to my website. That's totally fine.
Thanks, Meg.
You're welcome. Thank you, friends. We'll talk to you later. Bye. Kim, we might as well, oh, I'm going to end this. So then it's not part of our recording. And then we can come right back here. Okay, see you in a bit.